You're listening to the 10x Your Agency podcast, where every Wednesday for the next 12 weeks, you'll be learning strategies on how to scale up your agency and grow your client base from successful agency owners who've been there, done it, and built a highly successful agency. You'll learn how they attract clients, what their biggest causes of client churn were, and what their challenges were at different stages of building their agency. My name is Marcus Taylor, and I'll be your host. Hey guys, welcome to episode 6 of the 10x Your Agency podcast. Today I'm joined by Paul Rouke, who's the founder of PRWD, one of the leading conversion rate optimization agencies here in the UK. So today I'm going to be talking to Paul about mindset. Often, as agency owners, the biggest thing holding our agencies back is us. It's the founder. And so we're going to be talking about how important it is to be working on yourself and developing your mindset. We're also going to be looking at conversion rate optimization, what it is that agencies could be doing better on their websites to acquire more leads, as well as some of the different tactics that Paul has used to generate leads and new business for PRWD. So Paul, it's a great pleasure having you here on the show. How are you doing?
Hi, Marcus. Yeah, very well. Thank you. Yourself?
Yeah, doing very well. So, Paul, before we jump in, I was just wondering if you could tell us a little bit about PRWD, what it is you guys do, and perhaps what makes PRWD different as an agency.
Yeah, so PRWD, we're a conversion optimization agency based in the UK. We've been around since 2004. We have our roots in user research and behavioral understanding, and this stems back right the way back to 1999, where I had my first job in digital as Shop Direct's first web designer. From 1999, I've recognized the importance of user research and understanding behavior, and therefore utilizing these insights to help change and improve online experiences. So today, we work with a range of large and enterprise level businesses across the UK and Europe, delivering their conversion optimization strategy and helping to drive business growth for them.
Got it. Awesome. And so do you kind of consult from strategy and research stage all the way down to making the changes on landing pages and running the tests for them? Or is it really just on the consulting advice part of it?
It's on the full spectrum, yeah. So from the very top in terms of strategic and cultural, working with businesses to help evolve their strategy and culture. And then, yeah, as you say, all the way down through to the actual delivery, the planning, delivery and implementation of tests to help improve and optimize the online experience.
Excellent. Okay, so Paul, when we first met, I think it was about half a year ago at Digital Elite Camp in Estonia. And you gave a really inspiring talk on, I think it was actually the keynote of the event, on the importance of being the change that you want to see in your industry. And I want to kind of touch on that a little bit later and talk about some of the things you're doing around that. But one of the things I remember, you were talking about how important it is to develop and work on yourself personally in order to achieve whatever ambitious goals you have for yourself or your company. What was the moment for you that made you realize how important it is to work on your mindset and beliefs?
For me, rather than it being a moment, it's been more a progressive realization over the last few years that the greater that I've personally been stepping outside of my comfort zone and pushing myself, looking to push my business, looking to make myself more visible in the industry. What that's done for me, and maybe for other people, it's made me become kind of even more self-critical because I'm outside of my comfort zone and I'm in this new territory. Particularly in this last 12 months from like 2015, it became really clear for me that I need to work on my self-confidence so that I'm not questioning myself and I'm not bringing about kind of imposter syndrome, which is that kind of feeling that you're a fraud and that you're going to get found out. So that's been very much my kind of personal journey. But what I've realized, the more we're working with businesses and working with people within these companies that are looking to make a change within their company, that ultimately it's down to individuals to have the belief in themselves that they can bring about change and inspire and educate other people to help bring about change within business. And conversion optimization is still very much an immature kind of industry. There's not too many businesses that really understand and appreciate the value and importance of it. So it's up to people individually working within businesses or working for businesses through agencies to be that kind of change within the company to help change the mindset and the culture to embrace this experimentation methodology.
Do you have any kind of examples you can think of where you've done something that has been out of your comfort zone and you've seen a kind of a direct benefit or opportunity or difference just come out as a result of that?
I suppose for this, the thing that comes to mind for me is probably to go back to 2008. My business, we didn't have a marketing strategy. I was very much in my comfort zone, just, very blinkers on and just dealing with the here and now. And I invited a lady into my business. She was actually a student from university for a summer placement basically just with the brief to help come up with our first marketing strategy. And so at the end of the summer placement, this lady came back to me and she presented the kind of short and long-term strategic plan for PRWD. And primarily what she was advocating to do was ultimately for me to step outside my comfort zone and to start becoming a visible and ideally like inspirational thought leader within the industry. So to start writing, to start speaking, to start putting myself out there. And I'd never done any of this. The only time I'd ever spoke in front of an audience was at my wedding in front of about 35 people. So this was a really big challenge for me to overcome these fears of public speaking, which I think many people would probably agree that public speaking is one of life's big fears. You put yourself in front of others, in front of an audience. So it didn't happen overnight. It was about 6 months later where I finally did my first talk in front of about 100 people. But if we fast forward from that moment to today, this decision to step outside my comfort zone, both personally and then from a business point of view, for us to be a visible agency that's putting ourselves out there and trying to help influence the industry and educate, that decision has been probably the most important that I've made in the last 8 years. It's fundamentally impacted the business positively.
For this industry, and I suppose the surrounding digital agencies, it seems to be kind of the thing that needs to be done to kind of be on the map is getting out of the conferences, being on, writing for whether it's Mars Unbounce or, these kind of sites. That's where you sort of see a lot of separation between the agencies that are really kind of respected and, as you say, are considered thought leaders from the rest of the agencies out there.
Yeah, I think that's it. And you've touched on there a little bit around content, but the big challenge that we are facing now is around the amount of noise that is out there online in terms of content marketing, with a significant amount of the noise coming from the people and the agencies that are effectively just jumping on the bandwagon of conversion optimization and describing it as pretty much a list of kind of tips and tricks and tactics and hacks in order to get more people to click the buy button. So yeah, there's a big separation there. Yeah.
So all the 30 hacks to triple your conversion rate and all this stuff. Paul, one concept that really resonated with me personally from your talk was this idea of shifting the definition of Hippo. So traditionally Hippo being the highest paid person's opinion, and redefining how we think of the Hippo to mean, I believe it was, you mentioned standing for humility, integrity, passion, positivity, and openness. I was wondering, which of these 5 areas have you personally found most challenging to develop, and how has it helped you to develop it?
Great, yeah. So I think for me, the first one that comes to mind here is positivity. And this goes back to what I described earlier around what I've often been faced with in terms of in my own mind is a lack of self-confidence and a lack of self-belief, because primarily, again, I've stepped outside of my comfort zone. I've really had to kind of work on that over the last few years, and I've spent a significant amount of time personally working on myself, which is on a more of a deeper level, but to kind of really try and understand how my mind works and how different parts of my mind, I suppose, can influence the way I'm thinking about things and whether I have perspective or I'm lacking perspective. So there's quite a diverse way of thinking for my mind. And it's only when I'm in a positive state of mind, where it's more kind of glass half full rather than glass half empty, that I know I bring the best of me to people that are around me, whether it's in my business or in my home life. So I'll admit it's still a challenge now, and just even yesterday, before this call now, I've actually basically defined in all different areas of my life the two very different ways that my mind operates when I'm either thinking positively or I'm thinking kind of negatively, and I'm lacking confidence. So even about the same things, about being an entrepreneur, there's a very positive way of me thinking about myself and a very negative way. So it's still a big challenge for me, which I openly admit, and I need to continue to work on that.
Is there anything that you have found particularly helpful in terms of things that you have done to help improve those areas?
One of the real major things in the last 6 months was being recommended a book by one of my kind of very trusted entrepreneurial friends and kind of advisors and mentors in some respects. And he recommended that I read the book called The Chimp Paradox. And for me, I've not actually read the full book. I've read about a third of it, but the first third is all about yourself and your mind, and your human side of your mind and your chimp side of your mind, and how these different sides compete with each other and influence your life and how you come across in every single day. So reading that book has really helped me to understand and try to separate out the two different kind of parts of my mind, so that I can try and maintain as much as possible in the positive human side of my outlook. So I'd highly recommend that book to anyone, particularly people, again, who are stepping outside of the comfort zone, entrepreneurs, people that are really looking to stretch themselves in their careers. You really need to understand how your mind works in order to kind of handle it and get the best out of yourself personally.
I've heard really good things about that book. I have to admit, it's still on my to-read list. Yeah, I've heard from a lot of people that have read it that it's actually quite good for... It's one of those kind of concepts where you remember for a long time and you're able to then sort of say, oh, that's the chimp speaking, and kind of stop yourself a lot.
Yeah, it's definitely left me with different stories like that, and how now I can very kind of quickly notice with other people that I'm spending time with, whether it's their human side of the brain speaking or reacting, or the chimp side. So yeah, it's really powerful for that. And if you don't mind, if I could just talk about one other of the 5 new definitions for the Hippo, humility, if that's okay. I think
absolutely, yeah.
This is an experience I had back in 2008, which has kind of stayed with me ever since. And basically, I was brought into a housing association in the UK to help them to improve their intranet platform that all their different satellite offices are using, spread across the south of England. So a key part of this project was for me to conduct user research with their employees in their different satellite offices to understand how they're using the intranet, how it can be improved, and what are the opportunities. So one of these sessions that I went to conduct in one of their London regional offices, I went into this room and there was different people that were going to come in for me to kind of interview them. And one of these sessions was a lady that came in who, I could tell straight away she was very nervous, very apprehensive. She said, the first thing she said to me is, I'm not sure what I'm doing here. I've never been asked to do this before, so I don't know if this will be of any value. So I spent the first few minutes just asking her some open questions, helping to just build up a little bit of confidence in herself, to know that I was valuing what she was saying. And so this kind of carried on. This session was for about an hour. And about halfway through this 1 hour session, when I was asking this lady about, do you have any ideas of potentially a new kind of addition to the intranet that would really help you in your role and maybe some of your colleagues. And this lady shared with me this idea that none of her other colleagues had shared with me. I couldn't have come up with this idea myself as an external consultant, because you needed to be an end user of this platform to understand what could help streamline processes and make people's work more efficient. It was such a great idea, and I think if a consultant would have come up with it, you would probably label it as a strategic or an innovative idea. In fact, it came from this lady who I suppose didn't even think she had it in her. So I fed back to her to say that's such a great idea. And she didn't really know how to take the credit I was giving her for that. And this new edition ended up getting featured in their new intranet. It was that good. But it was at the end of this 1 hour session that is something that's really stuck with me. And just as this lady was getting up we'd finish the research session, she just kind of stopped and turned around to me and she said, Paul, can I just say thank you so much for listening to me today and kind of valuing my ideas. When I'm at home with my husband, he tells me, don't bother saying anything because my ideas are worthless. So, thank you so much for listening to me today. And so for me, I think this story has stayed with me ever since, and it really has underlined the importance of however much we think that we know ourselves, we should never undervalue and disrespect the ideas and opinions and suggestions of other people. And I think this is a story which I think many businesses, and certainly like people within senior positions within businesses, need to recognize and understand that we need to become customer centric and really listen to our end users rather than basing ideas and changes on just egotism and opinion. So it's humility is a cornerstone of the reinvented Hippo.
Yeah, no, I really like it. And it's amazing kind of concept for, just kind of a bit of a reality check, I think. When you're working in a company, just kind of going through those 5 areas, almost sort of seeing, are we doing everything we can to develop humility within the company and with it individually, integrity, passion, positivity, openness. Since hearing the talk, it's stuck with me and really great concept. I want to kind of move a little bit onto acquisition because I know PRWD do a lot of really interesting stuff around it's kind of acquisition, but also I understand that your kind of motives for doing it are also a little bit wider for the kind of general industry. So I was wondering, I noticed you've got things like these conversion optimization jargon busters. You've got your conversion optimization maturity audits and the app as well, which I think is a self-assessment. Can you talk us through a little bit about why you're creating these content or assets? What's the thought process behind creating them?
Yeah, so I think the thought process goes back to summer 2008, where I shared with you the story of the lady coming into the business, setting out our first ever marketing strategy. And it was all around thought leadership and ultimately becoming a very visible and influential player or agency in this industry. So it was in 2008 where we first got onto Twitter. We created our first blog, and it was in 2009 where I started training and speaking. So we're going back kind of 8 years now from when this all started. And this idea of getting out there, sharing knowledge, helping to educate and enlighten people, helping to make change within business has been a core foundation to the business. And for me, and this can sometimes be at odds to people within the business who are more commercially focused, I've got a very deep down desire to want to help mature the industry overall and not just run an agency or run a successful growing agency. So again, doing things such as the blog, doing public speaking, to kind of get out there and to help educate other people is crucially important for the business and for me personally. And I think 2 things just to focus on here would be the first book that we published, which is The Growth Strategy That's Been Ignored. And this book came from me realizing a few years ago just how just a few businesses really understand and appreciate the importance of conversion optimization. So many companies were doing it but weren't really getting any impact. The culture wasn't right in the business. They didn't have the people in place. They didn't have processes in place. And I wanted to wonder whether or not these were just my experiences working with the businesses of PRWD clients, or actually is this a wider issue and a wider challenge around the industry? So what I did, I went out to the industry's other kind of thought leaders in growth and optimization. So everyone from Angie Schottmuller, Brian Eisenberg, Craig Sullivan, Andre Morris, Pep Lyer, Ollie Gardner, Talia Wolf, and Roger Dooley. I went out to 16 other people and I asked them all the same question: what in your experience is holding companies back from growing through optimization? And within a day of sending this message out to people, I was getting very passionate and very deep insights from people. I'd kind of lit the blue touch paper and asked a very valid question. And so what potentially could have just been initially maybe a blog post, for instance, or a white paper, a dreaded white paper, I decided to turn this into a book because I felt that the insights I was getting from all these other global thought leaders was far too important to just sit online on a blog post or on something digital. So we actually produced a book called The Growth Strategy That's Been Ignored. And now this is a book that can potentially act as a wake-up call for many businesses and decision makers to realize that these are the things that we shouldn't be doing, that we need to stop doing in order to help grow our business through strategic conversion optimization. So yeah, that's a book. So we don't make any money from that. Pretty much we've self-published, so it's not a revenue generator for us, but it's more of a book to help mature the industry and help decision makers to kind of think differently about conversion optimization, but also to help practitioners and people on the lower levels within business who really understand conversion optimization. This can be a kind of almost a tool for their business to go to their senior decision makers with, to say, please, have a read of this. It takes less than an hour. These are the kind of things that we need to be thinking about and looking to change within our business. So that's our first book. And then secondly, our conversion optimization maturity audit. So this has been in development now for about 3 years. And once again, it was born out of the fact that so many companies were saying we're doing A/B testing, we're doing conversion optimization. But actually, when you go beneath the surface and you start to ask about what tests have they run, what successes have they had, what user research did they do, what are the learnings that they're making, everything typically started to fall away, and there was no real substance and no real impact behind their optimization. So what we decided to do is we decided to start developing a maturity model so that we could assess businesses and plot them on the different levels of maturity in different areas of their business. And as we started developing maturity audit, it became clear to me that there's an opportunity here to help have a wider impact on the industry. So rather than this just being a tool that we'll use internally for the clients that we're working with, actually, if we make this into a free online assessment tool for any business around the world, whether or not we'll work with them or not, we're giving them some key insights as to where they are now and what are the biggest opportunities for them to evolve their strategy for conversion optimization.
Excellent. Paul, in terms of both the book and the self-assessment maturity model, what have you seen in terms of the results from like a lead gen perspective? Are these having influence in terms of potential clients who are picking up the book and saying, yep, these guys are thought leaders, we want to have a chat? Or what have you kind of noticed around that side?
We don't yet have a fully developed strategy behind the book and the audit, because we've primarily focused on getting them out there. But yeah, we've certainly seen how they're starting to influence the right kind of people, and it's raising interest in ourselves as an agency and what we can potentially do for their company. So yeah, I wouldn't say at the moment it's kind of a runaway success, but the maturity model and the app, as an example, is very much a long-term strategic initiative that we've put in place. So it's not just about the immediate impact, it's about how companies will be using this in 6, 12, 18 months time from now, and also the industry benchmarking that we'll be able to do by kind of gathering these insights from businesses in different sectors in different countries across the world.
Where is this kind of motivation coming from, do you think? Like, to develop and mature the industry, like what's kind of driving you to passionately pursue that goal?
It's a really interesting question. And I suppose I just feel like there's, for me personally and for my agency, there is just much more to offer, and there's a bigger impact that we can have than just running and growing a successful agency. And there is also the element that helping to mature the industry, helping to educate and enlighten decision makers, by helping to therefore mature the industry, it will mean that compared to currently, where there is so much education needed within businesses and potential clients that we're speaking to, maybe in 12, 18 months time from now, the appreciation and understanding of conversion optimization and how to do it intelligently, as the maturity increases within business, ideally there will be less education required. So I suppose there's that, but then I suppose it's also, with the maturity audit, it's almost allowing businesses a tool to assess their agency that's offering conversion optimization, to help understand the big difference between what I would say is kind of BS optimization and intelligent optimization. So it's overall trying to create a better industry with better appreciation, better awareness, and better practices, and ultimately fighting back against all the noise and all the kind of bandwagon jumpers that conversion optimization is attracting.
Before we go on, if you're looking to grow your client base and capture more leads for your agency, then I'd recommend checking out Leadformly. Leadformly is a lead generation tool run by yours truly that enables you to upgrade the forms on your website to conversion optimized forms that are going to increase your conversion rate and help you capture more qualified leads from your website. Using Leadformly, we've seen agencies capture up to 700% more leads. So if you're interested in giving it a try, we have a 14-day free trial that you can check out at leadformly.com. That's leadformly.com. Once again, that's at leadformly.com. So you've spoken at quite a few events in the conversion industry. Obviously, we met at Digital Elite Camp. I think you've spoken at quite a few others. How have you found public speaking as a means for growing the business, or what impact have you found as a result of speaking?
What we continue to find is the impact that public speaking's had potentially like maybe even 12, 18 months previous to when we start working with a business. I suppose it's that approach of having an impact on people so they remember me or they remember one of my colleagues who also speak. And when the time's right for them, we'll be one of the first companies that they'll come to speak to because they know looking for what we offer. So yeah, public speaking and the kind of broader thing around thought leadership and just being very visible and trying to be influential and inspirational in the industry, it plays a part in quite a lot of the businesses that we end up working with. It doesn't typically lead to me doing a public talk and then the week after or a month after we're now working with a company who see me speak. It's more of that. We're kind of putting the foundations in place and we're planting a seed so that when the time's right, PRWD will be in a very good position and front of mind for these people.
Got it. And I think what's kind of nice from what I can see is you've got that kind of bigger message to talk about. I mean, obviously a lot of agencies are out there speaking, but on a very kind of tactical, strategic level. And I kind of get the impression that the things that you're talking about at a lot of these conferences is very kind of visionary, bigger picture, wider kind of industry. And so I think as you have that story, you have that message, it's so well suited to being on the speaker circuit. So I can totally see how that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Paul, I want to kind of switch gears a little bit and talk a little bit more about your area of expertise, obviously conversion optimization. What is one thing that you've seen as like a big mistake that a lot of agencies make on their websites that are perhaps harming their conversion potential?
I would say it's this idea of jumping on the bandwagon and offering and promoting on their website conversion optimization as a service, but without any real desire or investment in looking to do conversion optimization intelligently. I mentioned a little bit earlier about there's this big divide between BS and intelligent optimization, which I've published a detailed article on the Conversion Excel blog about this. I would just say to any agency that's looking to offer conversion optimization as an additional service is to take it seriously and to make a commitment as an agency to invest in this, to invest in the right people and the right processes, and to take it seriously so that you're kind of enhancing the maturity of the industry rather than damaging business maturity and clients' appreciation of conversion optimization.
Got it. And tell me a little bit more about the difference between a somewhat mature agency and a very mature. What does the self-assessment differentiate between an immature and a very mature agency that's doing, or company that's doing conversion?
Yeah, the Maturity Audit app is actually looking for what we call the 4 pillars for conversion optimization. So the first pillar is strategy and culture. And this is very often missing within most businesses, or there's just no real focus on influencing and developing the strategy and culture. The second pillar is tools and technology, which is, of course, looking at the testing tool and the usage of that, but also things like your analytics platform. And then the third pillar is people and skills. Is there a multidisciplinary skill set and team in place to deliver optimization? And then the fourth one, which I think is what you're referring to there a little bit, is process and methodology. And as an example, is there an intelligent why behind your test hypothesis? Very often there is very little in terms of user insight or intelligence behind it. But at the top end of the spectrum for hypothesis development is your tests are developed based on deep user understanding, behavioral understanding, data analytics, prior test learnings. So that's really important. Have we learned from previous tests and how can they feed into other tests, as well as the expertise that's been brought by people that are working in this field day in, day out. So there's a big difference behind how hypotheses are developed. And then I suppose to pick up on another key area, when we're talking about people and skills, at the kind of bottom end of maturity, thinking about user research, there can be very little in the way of behavioral understanding that's informing the testing. Whereas at the top end of maturity, this is companies that are investing in moderated user research. It's been done cross-device, it's been done multi-channel, and the kind of behavioral insights are like the core foundation for the conversion optimization program. And it's having this in place, it's when companies have a real deep understanding and a deep investment in behavioral research, it's these companies that are actually becoming more customer centric. There's so many companies say we're customer centric, yet very few of them are actually speaking to their customers in the right kind of way and understanding their behavior. So I suppose a couple of examples are of the two extremes, but if I'll give you one more, just in terms of strategy and culture, there's often a big disconnect between what people on the ground understand and appreciate with conversion optimization and what the CEO and the C-suite understand. In terms of, very often at the top of the business, there's a lack of understanding and appreciation of conversion optimization. And what that does, that at some stage is going to really hamper the effectiveness of the team delivering conversion optimization, because they'll hit a roadblock at some stage, or they'll be faced with the classic Hippo, and testing will be driven by egotism and opinion. So again, but then businesses at the top end of the spectrum, there's true kind of appreciation and understanding of conversion optimization from the very top of the business, from the CEO. This isn't just a nice to have or some distraction to the bigger picture. Strategic conversion optimization is a growth lever for their business.
Got it. And so you would recommend that people right at the top of the company would not only agreeing to invest in conversion optimization, but also a key part in coming up with the hypotheses, or is that kind of going a little bit too...
That's probably going a bit too far. You can certainly listen to their opinions and ideas, but I think more importantly, and what we've seen to be proven to be extremely effective in helping to educate and enlighten the chief executive and C-suite, is for them to observe user research videos firsthand. And what this does is it changes their perception of their online experience and their ideas of how it needs to be improved. They're now seeing the reality from an end user perspective. And it can often be that wake-up call that actually what we think about our experience is very different to our actual end users. So, it's more that enlightenment for the decision makers at the top. It doesn't necessarily mean that they're kind of involved day to day, but they need to grasp and understand the importance of strategic conversion optimization.
Okay, Paul. So what I want to do is in a moment go into our quickfire questions. But before we do that, I was just wondering if we can dig into pillar 4 of the 4 pillars you mentioned, the kind of systems and processes. I noticed on your website that PRWD has a 77% average test success rate, which is incredible. I was wondering, what are the kind of systems and processes that you use at PRWD to maximize the likelihood, the probability of a test idea being successful?
First of all, for the last 5 years, we've developed and refined our growth methodology, which is PRWD's process for both doing the research and the insight work behind testing, and then actually how do we deliver tests. So that's been a continuous kind of evolution over the last 5 years. It's fundamentally rooted in user research and behavioral understanding, as I mentioned, since 1999, when I was the first web designer at Shop Direct. And that's when I first experienced user research. I realized and recognized the importance of understanding user behavior. So that's the kind of foundation for our methodology. But then what also is sometimes often missed when companies are running tests is that they fail to place the right level of importance and emphasis on the actual design variation. So there's typically a lack of persuasion and psychology principles that are applied. There's a lack of understanding around persuasive copywriting, for example. And often the kind of UX designers, there's a lot of egotism in place there rather than more of the humble user experience designers where they're willing to test their ideas. So I think it's a combination of these different facets, both first having a really solid insights and hypothesis development process, and ultimately having an intelligent why behind the test. So that's the foundation. But then when it moves into the actual design of the experiment, ensuring that it's harnessing different techniques and using persuasion principles in order to help influence user behavior more. And I think it's probably worth just explaining on this as well with the average test success rate, that this isn't just about kind of the low-hanging fruit. We have different streams of testing, from kind of simple and iterative all the way through to more innovative and strategic tests. So this is an underlying measure of the intelligence, I suppose, behind the test hypothesis.
How do you balance that with the speed of testing? Because obviously if you're doing less research, you can produce more tests. And so how do you kind of balance the number of tests that you're running versus the amount of research that goes into each test?
A couple of things here. One is we have different streams of testing. So we can have the simple, quicker, iterative testing that's going on, that's potentially based more on heuristics and expertise and experiences from years and years of testing with different brands. But I think then what you've also touched on there is he's talking about the volume or like quantity of testing, potentially at the detriment to quality. For us, from our experience, apart from some of the world's biggest brands that have literally millions and millions of visitors every week or every month, who can afford to run countless tests on a monthly basis, so it's very much a kind of volume-based game. And for these huge brands, a 0.2% increase in conversion would have a big impact on their kind of revenue and profitability. But 99% of businesses out there doing conversion optimization don't have the kind of traffic levels to run really quickly, to run lots of tests. And ultimately, every test, if done intelligently with the right process and with the right people in place, with the right analysis afterwards and the right learnings, every test takes time and resource. So for us, we primarily focus with businesses first on quality, then kind of quantity of testing. And I've explored this a lot more in an article on e-consultancy, which is looking at the difference between vanity and sanity metrics in conversion optimization. There's a quote, quite a famous quote by Jeff Bezos around Amazon, saying that if you double the number of experiments you run, you double your innovation levels. Now, that sounds good. So it almost sounds like let's just do more and more testing because we're being more innovative. But I would go back to companies that might start thinking like that and to say, right, well, what is the why behind the testing? Are you just testing for the sake of it to get velocity up? Or is there an actual reason and a why behind that test? So I think that's the bigger question, first of all, is are we testing the right things for the right reasons? And then we can think about scaling up and to running more tests.
Interesting. I like it. So, Paul, first quick fire question I've got for you is, what is your number one book recommendation at the moment for other business owners?
Yeah, it would be, I mentioned it earlier, the Chimp Paradox. It's perfect for high-achieving people who often choose to work outside their comfort zone, which I know, Marcus, is something that you've talked about and you're very passionate about as well.
Definitely, yeah. What's your favourite tool at the moment?
It is 7 Geese, which is our OKR, or Objectives and Key Results platform, as well as our employee recognition platform.
Interesting. I've not heard of that one. Number 3 is, what's one piece of advice that you would give to an agency owner who's looking to scale up their agency by an order of magnitude? So go from 6 figures to 7 or 5 to 6.
Yeah, I would say to play the long game. So invest in activities and strategies that will have long-term financial rewards, even if they don't deliver immediate revenue impact.
Perfect. What was your biggest cause of client churn in the early days when you were growing PRWD?
It was lacking a retainer proposition. So the business revenues month to month were driven by project work.
Perfect. And finally, what's next for PRWD? What can we expect over the next few years?
Yeah, so a primary focus is building up usage by brands across the UK and the world of our conversion optimization maturity audit tool. We'll also be further developing our global partnership with other conversion optimization agencies in the Global Optimization Group. I think thirdly, we'll be publishing our second book as a follow-up to the growth strategy that's been ignored. And the title of that is The Growth Strategy That's Been Applied, which will be highlighting key brands, including Expedia, who are really embracing conversion optimization and experimentation to help grow their business. And then I think finally, with everything that we're trying to do and with other, the thought leaders are trying to do to mature the industry, in the next few years, we'll be looking to capitalize on the slowly maturing market, with more and more brands actively looking to invest in strategic conversion optimization to grow their business.
Amazing. It sounds extremely exciting. What we'll do, Paul, is we'll link to the books and the maturity audit in the show notes, so people can check those out. A huge thank you, Paul. This has been amazing. Lots of really great insights. If people want to learn a bit more about you or a bit more about PRWD, what's the best place for them to learn a bit more?
I suppose I'll just give a few links. So it'd be the agency website, prwd.co.uk. And then there's a bit.ly link, which gives one link access to pretty much all the content that me and my team have delivered and produced over the last 8 years. And it's bit.ly/CRO resources.
Awesome. Again, a huge thank you for your time and all of the insights. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks a lot for inviting me on for this call. Thanks, Marcus.
Cheers, Paul. Thanks for listening to this episode of the 10x Your Agency podcast. If you're interested in acquiring more leads for your business, I'd like to invite you to a free webinar that I'll be hosting on how to acquire 300% more leads from your website without increasing your traffic. In this webinar, I'll be sharing how you can turn your website into a lead generation machine, 4 strategies on how you can boost your form submissions by 300%, and much more. So if you're interested, all you need to do is go to Google, type in Leadformly, acquire more leads. That's Leadformly, spelled Leadformly, acquire more leads. And the landing page to register for the webinar should appear at the top. As I said, it's completely free and we run this webinar every single week. So once again, thanks for listening to this week's episode and stay tuned for next week's episode of the 10x Your Agency podcast.